So hey everyone, and in this video we'll be learning some more things about React.js. So first of all, in the last video we actually created this very simple project, so you can check out that. Now you might be wondering, this is a JavaScript function and this is the HTML code. So what's actually happening behind? So actually what happens is this HTML code is first of all converted into JavaScript. Okay, so if I give you an example, I'll just paste the similar JavaScript code. You don't need to learn that, but yeah, just for understanding, I am sharing you the JavaScript equivalent code of the same page. Okay, so what you have to do is you can simply see that this was normal HTML code, right? It's later on converted into this JavaScript code. So obviously it's a bit complicated, but yeah, it's a bit readable, so you can read about this, and it's a bit readable, so you can see, right? So similar to this, your normal HTML code is there. This is converted into first of all JavaScript like this. Later on it's sent to the wherever location you want, whatever location you want. Okay, so your JSX code, JavaScript XML code, is actually converted into that way. Now we'll be learning more things. For example, we have a variable. We'll just say const name equals, suppose my name is Harshal. Okay, so you can see we have Harshal here, and what we can say is I'll just add it as a variable here. So if I just show you this into my page, what you can see is you would see that your name is actually here. Okay, so it's very safe to use and you don't need to restart. It's giving you real-time changes, right? And what else can you do is you can actually add different hooks. Later on we'll be learning about hooks, but let's first of all say we have only one hook for now. Let me just write it, and I'll just name it as counter and set counter, and it would be starting from 0, and I'll just add its value. Later on I'll explain what is this exactly, but right now just write it as it is. So you can see that I have to import usage, so I'll just click here, control and space, and you can simply import it. At the top you can see it's imported. So right now guys, you would see that we have a variable as starting with 0. Suppose I want to increment it again and again, so I would be calling a hook named as use effect. Later on I'll be explaining this very properly, and I would just say whenever the application starts, just increment the counter. For example, I would just say let's create a function. Let's create a small function here, increment, and I'm just saying whatever is the value, just increment it by 1 and then set it inside this. Okay, so whatever its value is, whatever is the value of counter, initially the value of counter is 0, you printed it here and you know the initial counter is 0. 0 plus 1 would now become 1, and I'm just calling set counter. Set counter actually replaces the old value with the new value. Okay, so now counter would actually become 1. Okay, and I have to just call this function. So I would just say I would just call this increment function again and again. How would I call this? Actually, I want this to run for infinite time, so I would just call increment. Okay, so now inside this, I would just call the increment function again and again. So now, guys, you can see that yeah, it's incrementing again and again. So you can actually add some pause also, but yeah, you can see that it's working fine. Okay, but if it was a normal variable, for example, instead of this, if I talk about a normal variable, let me just comment this out, and let me just say we have again a variable named as counter. Okay, so let counter equals 0. Suppose now if you want to increment it, what you can do is if I just again create a function to increment. Okay, so function increment, and you're just saying I want to increment this normal JavaScript function, and then again I would call use effect, and later on I'll explain this very properly, but right now I want to just call a use effect, and I'm just saying whenever this app starts, just call the increment function. Let's see how it works. So you can see that it's not able to make real-time changes, but in the same time, if I try to print this console.log use effect, and if I just say I want to get the value of counter, so now if I just try to check, what it says is, so you can see that it's not able to update the values. So if you want to get real-time changes, you can see that yeah, it's able to update this, but not the real-time data. Okay, so obviously if you want to get real-time changes, you have to use React.js hooks. So React.js is always used for getting real-time changes without reloading the page. You can see I don't even need to reload the page in that use effect case, but in this case in the normal variable case, you can see I named it like this, I declared a variable like this won't give me real time changes. Okay, if there is a change in this variable in future, you won't be able to see that in your page. But if you're using hooks, you would be able to see the changes. Okay, so later on we'll be learning more about hooks, but right now I just wanted to tell you what's the purpose of React.js and what's the benefit of using React.js. And here you can see we actually used a function, and we can actually call function inside function. That is, you can see this app is itself a function. Inside that, I created my own function, I also created my own variables, and I can call them anytime I want. Okay, and I can just show their values also, whatever variables value I want to show. Okay, so it's very beneficial. And this is it, guys, a very basic overview of JSX. Now you would be learning more about this once you start coding. Now one more important thing is, you might have seen in the last video, we were actually trying to give some CSS to this navbar. But yeah, this is one way of giving CSS. Another way is actually you can just say, for example, okay, let me just give you a very basic overview. So const items, let's create an array, and let's say it has three things: home, about, contact. And now in this page I just want to show. Okay, so what I would do is I would just say items dot map, and I would just return this division. So what it would do is it would just return the division of these items. So now you can see that, yeah, my navbar actually has this. So you can perform any JavaScript operation very easily. You can see I just performed this very easily. I've just mapped the items very easily. Okay, so it's very crazy and very easy to use, and later on you'll be using it more. But yeah, you can see I created a very basic navbar. So instead of this class, what I can do is I can just give styling here also. So I will just say style and then double brackets, and here I can just say, for example, background color of each is suppose red. And I can also say that we have some padding of 10 pixels. So you can see that, yeah, each is red. Actually, I also need to give some margin also. So just say we have margin of 10 pixels. So you can see that, guys, that's how you can actually style your navbar. You can do a few more things. For example, this was your navbar, right, and it's shown it like this. So what we can do is we can just add a few more things, like for example, instead of this, either you can write the style here, style equals like this, or you can just write your style inside this. Okay, both ways would work. So just say display flex and justify content space between. So you can see that that's how you can easily style your things. Okay, so later on you'll be using it more for different purposes, but that's how you can style. One way is this, other way which we already discussed for this one. Okay, so you just need to import your CSS file and then you can use it, right? So now, guys, I taught you how to basically just add functions, variables, and then how you can add styles and how you can map an array very easily. Okay, so it's very useful when you have, like, for example, you have a list of products. You are just building an e-commerce platform, it has a list of products. So you would be getting some data from your backend. This is suppose data from your backend, and now you would be showing it like this. Okay, very easy, and you can later on style your card like this. Okay, so just a very basic overview. Now, guys, let's continue with the next part. Now, guys, after this, we'll be learning about click event. So it's very easy. Like, for example, here we have this home page, right? So here you can see this is a home page. And suppose we have a button here. Okay, suppose we have a button here. So let me just say we have a button, and I'll just say click me. And suppose if I just say click me, and suppose this is having some values. For example, we were using counter, right? So I'll just again write my counter. Later on we'll be learning more about this, but right now I'll be just creating a counter here which is called every time. But instead of this use effect, whenever I call this function, I want to increment the value. Whenever I click a button, then I want to increment the value. How can I do this? First of all, I'm showing my counter here, right? So I'll just say if I click on this, I can call the function. That's it. Okay, so I'll just say on click, and you can just call your increment function. That's it. So you can see if I click on this, you can see now I'm able to click this very easily. So you can see that, yeah, that's the purpose, and it's actually useful. But in some cases, for example, you have just created a function here which connects with backend and just saves data to backend or gets data from backend. So obviously you would be calling it when you have a button, or in some cases you would be calling it automatically. When you call things automatically, you are talking about use effect hook. But you want to call it with a button, you would be using on click here, right? So that's how actually onClick works, handle click event works. So if I just write on, you can see we have different kind of events. You would be using this a lot in different cases, but a very basic one which you would always use is onClick. Okay, so I taught you what is onClick, and we have different events, right? So this is it. Now one more important thing is you can see we have a navbar here, right? So we can actually send parameter to different component. You can see inside app we have the navbar component. So what I can actually do is, for example, I would just say that we have a variable. So let me just say let name equals Harshal. Okay, so name equals Harshal Jain. So what I can do is I can just say here you can forward the parameter to the component also. That means you want to share some variables value or some array, some object, whatever you want, you can share it very easily. So I would just say I want to forward what? I want to forward the value of my name. Okay, so just forward my name here. So now name variable is forwarded with the value of name. Okay, so you can see name variable, we have just created a name variable parameter, and it has a value of our name, that is this. Okay, so I've just forwarded it to navbar. So if I go to my navbar, and now if I just want to get the parameters, what I can do is I can just say if I just directly write name, what would happen if I just directly write name, and if I just say console.log name? Okay, what would happen? Let's see. So if I write this, you can see if I just inspect, right click and inspect. So if you go to console, so you can see you are getting something. So you can see that I'm able to get my name. Now guys, here you can see that it's sent as an object. That's why you're receiving as an object. Okay, so you can just change the name also. So you would just say data, that would be better. So now we are just trying to get the value. So here you can see you are sending data, and let's print data. Okay, that would be better. So you are trying to print the data from navbar. So you can see whatever is the data, you are sending it. Okay, so the variable name is also data. So if I write data dot data, so you would get Harshal Jain. Okay, that's how it actually works. Now suppose if I want to show it, if I want to show it somewhere, for example I want to show it in the h1, so I would just show it like this, or just say data dot data very easily. So you can see that here I'm getting my name also at the top. So it's very easy. I defined it in the app.js, and I'm able to get this here. Okay, so very good thing. Now one more thing is, right now you know that I sent this data from app to navbar, but suppose I want to send data from navbar to app. How can you do that? So for that we have different kind of hooks, but you can't do it directly. So we have different kind of hooks. We'll be learning about that later on, but yeah, this is a very basic overview how things actually work. Okay guys, so one more thing has been covered, that is functions, and I also told you how you can share props from parent to child, that is from app.js to navbar.js. Okay, so parent to child component is very easy, but from child, that is navbar, to parent, that is app.js, it's a bit complicated, and we use hooks for that. Okay guys, so I hope you understood this part of the video. Now in the next video we'll be covering hooks. So that's it for today. I will see you in the next one. Till then, have a good day.